Welcome to Moving with Life. This is episode number 17. I am Andy Acosta. My friends Eddie Sines and Brian Luevanos will be joining me today. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for lending us your ears for the next hour and a half or so. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave reviews. We are on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. So episode number 17, we have a couple of updates from Brian as far as what's going on. He was supposed to go into speed dating deal and ended up falling through because he got some type of eye infection. So that happened. We eventually continue talking. The conversation continues. We eventually get to my blood results and my fast and changes I need to make. It seems like this episode was a lot about me, which is interesting. It wasn't planned necessarily, but there are some things in here that I did want to make it known, I guess, to the public. You know, we're always working on the process. We're always working on, bettering ourselves. At least I'm working on bettering myself for you and for everybody that is in my life. And that's what I was consumed with. So that's what we really talked about. So without further ado, here is Moving with Life. What a week.
What a week.
Yes.
So, Brian, what happened? Now, I was looking forward to hearing your damn speed dating story. Like, I was looking forward to, okay, Friday's going to come.
I was looking forward to going.
Oh, so you ended up not going.
I ended up not going because Wednesday was when my eye acted up the worst. So I ended up going on a date to the night clinic.
Did you meet any good people there?
Good male doctor, but nothing like what would have been my speed dating.
Well, hey, man, don't knock it if you haven't tried it.
Well, I'm sure he'd take very good care of me. But yeah, not the Wednesday night I had planned at all.
That sucks, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'll be on the lookout for another one though. Hopefully.
Who is putting on the event?
It was at the Orchard. I don't know if it's technically downtown McAllen, but it's like Old 83 near 10th.
Okay.
It used to be some other nightclub, but I've been there for lunch, and it's kind of, I guess, apparently maybe a nightclub also. But, yeah, they were hosting that event Wednesday.
Okay.
At 6. Just didn't get to make it.
That's cool. We used to do speed dating events like every fall semester for philanthropy, raising philanthropy money. Philanthropy money for the fraternity.
Man, that's cool. I never thought about setting it up for, to raise funds.
Yeah. People really flock to speed dating. Like it's a big thing.
I didn't think it would be down here. That's why I kind of jumped to it when I heard about it. I was like, yeah, I'm down. Like, just for the experience. I'm really not looking to I don't want to say not looking to connect. I wasn't looking for, like a relationship
Maybe
or anything.
you weren't expecting something.
I just wanted the experience,
Yeah.
see how that would go and maybe get to know some people,
Yeah.
Just for the sake of networking and, know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was the year that I was an associate, which is what we called pledges in my fraternity. We called them associates. So the year that I was an associate in my fraternity, we were doing the speed dating thing, and so we had to help out, obviously, and do that. And I was able to participate at one point, too. So I hopped in for a few rounds and then ended up, meeting this, really cool girl. And, we just kind of hit it off. We both liked the same kinds of music. And, we were really into the same songwriters, like Townes Van Zandt and Robert Earl Keen and Guy Clark and stuff like that. So we just kind of hit it off. And the sorority she was joining that semester, their formal was coming up within the next couple of weeks. So then she just asked me to go with her to her formal. And I was like, badass. I got to go to, a formal out of this.
Yeah.
So we kind of had, a little date. Worst date
No
ever.
way.
Wait, okay. Can you elaborate just a little bit?
Yeah, I haven't thought about this in forever, man. It's totally jogged my memory. But it was just the worst date ever. You could possibly imagine. She showed up an hour late to like get picked up. Like I was like gonna go like pick her up like there at the school, and then we're gonna take pictures at the water fountain or whatever fucking
Wow.
landmark,
Yeah.
that's popular at the time. And so like, we were gonna do that, and then she's like a whole hour late. And then we get to the place where it's at, and then like the parking garage wasn't tall enough for my truck to fit.
Oh,
So I had to like
damn.
go park on the street, and I had to like go get like quarters and shit for the meter, and it was just like it's a fucking disaster of a date, man.
Dang.
That's a good story.
I don't even think it is. I feel like I'm lacking so much detail. Like, but
Well, maybe, but you look for details though. Like that's why you write songs.
yeah,
That
I
makes sense.
just
Like to me, that's a funny story because that happened.
Yeah,
Like
just
that.
the-
Like if
it
you
was
think
just
of
so long ago.
yeah, yeah, and like think about like simple human experience. Like you experienced that. It's like, damn it, like that.
It's
that's what I see-
crazy.
that's
It's
what I hear.
crazy though how like you guys connected because of all these common interests, but then the date itself ended up being horrible.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's that opposite
Interesting.
track thing, or I don't know what. But
I don't know. It's crazy. I wonder if all those variables had like gone the right way, how the actual like I guess the interactions would have played out.
yeah. What's funny is not gonna mention names, but the girl I've been seeing lately, who I'm just like head over heels over right now, it's like crazy about. We have like way opposite tastes when it comes to everything. It's hilarious. Like it-
Dichotomies.
yeah, as far as like movies,
Yeah.
like she likes the more like easygoing, like laughable movies, and I'm like,
The
no,
rom-coms.
I want to see the movie where Matthew McConaughey's head gets slashed off, like
Yeah.
the like really that's the Paperboy, by the way. Sorry to ruin that for everybody.
Spoiler
But
alert.
spoiler alert, that happens in the Paperboy. And but anyway, I like those like deep, like dark intellectual movies, and she
Right.
like doesn't like them at all. And then as far as music goes too, and not that like we don't like similar things. We find things we like that together, but most of the time it's a little opposite. I don't really like hate any kind of music. I just like anyone else have preferences.
Right.
But yeah, it's just funny how that works.
That I feel like that could work, especially with a long run thing, where you have like your commonalities, but then you have your opposite stuff. Because then that allows you to still say, hey, I'm gonna go out with my friends. Cool. Hey, I'm gonna go out with my friends
To
too.
diversify.
Yeah, yeah. You're able to just have that space along with being together. I think that's a good thing.
And I think it's something that you're also able to bring into the relationship.
Ooh,
you
that's
know,
a good point.
Outside of shared interest, you can bring other things into the mix and see how it plays out.
That's a very good point. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Freaking A.
Yeah, that for me, that's what I think. I think I feel like maybe back in high school and even maybe college, maybe early years of college, where like you have a girlfriend and whatnot, and you have that lovey-dovey stage, but it's different when you're in high school, because you do see each other all the time and you want to be together all the time. And I think now that we're older, and we're on a career path by now, we are doing different things. I think that the conflicts of interest are a good thing. I think they're a good thing.
Yeah, have to agree. Well, what you got for us this week, Walker? What's going on here?
Man, well, first I just want to start off with, for me, like my week is totally just changed for the better. Like I guess I just needed like a week of just like not the high that I guess the high I usually live on, and since Tuesday, I just feel better. When me and Eddie talked last week talked on Sunday, so it's 5 days ago. Leading up to that point, my workouts weren't good. I was just slacking. I just felt like I was slacking, but my brain I just couldn't function. And then by Tuesday, I was rebooting, and then Tuesday ended my day with jiu-jitsu, and it just felt great. And like right now, I'm like to me an ultra high. I don't know how else to describe it.
Here's a dichotomy for you: the highs don't stand without the lows.
Yeah, and interesting. Were you gonna say something?
No,
Oh,
just
I was
agreeing.
saying, and interesting enough, because remember, Brian, when I first started contemplating the podcast, this was within a month or two ago. I was just like, man, and what I went back to was like value, and okay, what I need to go back to the roots of why starting the podcast in the first place. For the most part, the majority of my days are so high that let's put a scale to it. Let's say my normal high is an 8, right? And normal low is like a 3. Well, because I'm doing everything that enjoy doing, whether it's working with Eddie, talking with business with Brian, working at 9 Round, working with my mom on her business, working with my dad on his health. My day-to-day like happiness scale is like a 12. So let's say I'm still at a 3 when I go down. Well, it just feels worse. Remember I brought that up, Brian? And like, I like that you say that, the dichotomy, Eddie, as far as like, you can't have the highs without the lows. And it's so true. And for me, it's like so extensive because I feel like for the most part, I'm running at, but the amps go up to 11. I'm running at 11 like almost every day. So to keep the lows at a 3, it still feels worse. It feels like I'm at a negative something, where that's not the case. Maybe, everybody's like, well, what's wrong? It's like, I couldn't tell you anyways, but that's been my week at least. Today, well, I didn't go sleep till like 5:30, dude. I stayed up super late.
Damn. Like me from last night?
Yeah, with the gig. Then me and you went to go eat, and then I guess it was probably close to 3 something when I got home, and then by the time I knew it was 4, and I was like, man, I've been up for 24 hours. I mean, I took a nap in the middle of the day, but it's like, man, I've been up for 24 hours, and I come inside and I just start like Googling stuff, and I was like, okay.
I was up pretty late. I wasn't up as late as you at 5:30, but I think I went to bed around like 4:30. I listened to a lot of new music the past 2 weeks. There's been so many releases. It's been hard to keep up with everything. John Moreland's new release just came out, and it's like friggin' phenomenal. Just a whole bunch of intellectual shit that I love. Poetry.
For me, I guess one thing that I did want to bring up, going back to value, I kind of briefly just touched on it, but I remember last night, Eddie, I was bringing up to you, value.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian, have you ever heard of VRIO? It's like a chart
No, I don't think
that
so.
you can do. So VRIO is value, rarity, imitation, and organization. So and I had to do this my capstone when I took capstone from undergrad, and our professor made us do a VRIO on the companies that we were dealing with, right? Like our company plus the 3 other competitive companies in the industry.
Okay.
So we had to say, okay, value, and we had to define value. How is our company value more, or or is it better or not than the other companies, right? And basically we rate all our companies and whatever, and then rarity is like, okay, how rare is it? Well, it's not that rare because we did gaming industry in this case. And then so it's like value is like, yes, because what we found in the research was the values, every gaming company pretty much had like their niche. Like EA Sports is for the most part all sports games, right? And then you have Activision Blizzard, which has I believe even like simulation, basically like if you're there, like simulation type deal. And then I don't even remember the other 2 companies. There's 4 companies. Either way. So I was telling Eddie this last night this lecture, the last lecture I had during my capstone came up in my mix of music when I was coming home at some point during my day, not last night, but during the day. So I've been like contemplating value and rarity and imitation and organization. And my professor, he even said on the lecture, he says, you can change organization for P, which is personal, and you have personal leverage. When he brought that up, I said, man, is there a way where you make yourself the product?
I was gonna say, not a product, but more of a service, because I think that's what's going on with a lot of like influencers, with YouTubers, and all these people on Instagram with their mass followers and stuff like that. They essentially become their own product or service, and they're marketing themselves and building a brand from their personal lives. So I think that's very much what's happening now.
So okay, yeah. I completely agree. I guess the biggest thing is like, because lately I've been bringing up value, even whether it's me and you, Brian, on our own, or me and Eddie on our own in this podcast. It's like, what more value? Like to me, that's one of the foundations that I never directly brought to VRIO. So when I heard this lecture, I was like, man, what kind of value can you bring? And a lot of these questions I feel like are very rhetorical. I didn't even write many questions for today just because I've honestly been researching, and I just wanted to have a conversation about really anything. But for me, what stuck is like, okay, value. I've been talking about that quite a bit for at least for the past month. All of April. Now we're in May, and then rarity. Are you rare? And I feel like the answer is yes for everybody because we're all our individual things. If you're providing a service, you know, now
Yeah.
imitation is where we get then you have like your how can you be imitated? Well, if everybody has a YouTube channel, then it's like okay, how personal leverage, and that's like the thing I'm not even at yet. I know I've been contemplating lately because I feel like where I thought music was gonna be the thing because I looked forward to this project before the project even existed, if that makes sense. And like as I'm going through life now, it's changing where music is so much a part of me that I'm not gonna quit anyways, but it's not like the ultra mission for me. And I don't know if you guys want to give what you think your mission is at the moment.
Ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, is to become to have financial freedom and have my own business, something in building or building or architect, which essentially is just design, right? Um, so I do want to get into that. Now, what I'm still trying to figure out is, I guess, what steps I need to take to get there. But in the end, ultimate goal, very general, is financial freedom and having my own business, something of my own, where I don't have to really answer to anybody but myself and my goals or the needs
Right.
of my family and myself.
I think I always tend to look at like my major mission in a very grand scheme kind of way. I don't know, I guess like ever since sophomore year of college when I was like really just having like these thoughts and whatever, I was like I really just want to leave like a good legacy behind more than anything. Like I just want to have led like a decent life for like, to leave something behind for people. Basically, just leaving the world in a better shape than I found it as
Yeah.
best as possible, and that's always my ultimate thing with whether doing that through music or doing that through podcasting or whatever else there could possibly be, but always goes back to that root for me.
Yeah. I took very little. I haven't finished the listening to episode 73 of Jocko podcast yet, but I did watch the first 25 minutes and I watched them again today so I can try to just develop some notes. And like I said, I haven't even been developing questions because I leading up to Tuesday where I fell into my funk and I had to reassess my mind. I was like, there's too many questions that are rhetorical. I was spending too much time on social media, so I need to do more action. And that's where I guess that's where I've stemmed from today, like leading up to today. It's like okay, and you guys talking about this, and and for those listening, the mission, like have you really thought about it? And let's say it's music, 100%. Then charge that, or I really thought mine was that, and it turns out to not. I don't know if it was Tim Ferriss or Jocko. Either way, one of them they brought up recently that where actually I think it was Tim Ferriss. He brings up in one of his videos that he has on his YouTube page. It's titled "The Best Mistake He's Ever Made," and the best mistake he ever made was dropping out of college for a year to work on his thesis. He went to Princeton. Like I mean that's an astute, like that's a school of schools, right? And his I guess his advisor for like the program said you better bring me the best thesis in the world. Like you better bring me the best thing I've ever seen, right? So in that year that he was gone, he then started working and he says basically in retrospect like what takes people sometimes 15, 20 years to realize and then change careers, he did in 6 months because he worked at a big company and at that it was like what do you call it? It was mobile, so like he was traveling a lot, and he realized with that company that he didn't want to work with a bunch of people. He needed the societal, I guess, factor. He needed that camaraderie, I guess, build up. He didn't use those words, but he needed people to work with. But he wanted to, I guess, be in the middle where he was hands on, but also like I guess have some type of charge or there's some type of direction given to him. Going back to the root of the mission, where he then realized, he needed to do his own thing.
Mhm.
And for me, it's hard. I feel like it's hard to kind of do that because I know I don't fit best there, and it's like a thing that I'm struggling with, at the moment. Because even he says like he could have worked for Goldman Sachs, he could have worked for all these, he could have worked for a bunch of companies because he went to Princeton. Like he would have just
Right.
had that job, or those jobs, or whatever he basically wanted. And one thing that he brought up, and this is I think the part that I like the best. I have it here written. A red flag that he found in retrospect was everybody wants like that something, so I should want it too. That was one thing that he pondered on. And when he said it, it's like, man, I don't know anybody necessarily wanting what I want because everybody's like kind of questioning me. And like, I guess that's a good thing, but
Well, maybe they're questioning the method, but the end goal might be a little more common.
yeah.
Could be. It's a possibility.
Right. And that's the biggest thing is what I've been saying lately, and then now that I've gotten out of my funk is like just give me time, just watch, just let me work. And with that being said, it's like okay, well I need to get to work, so I've been trying to go to 9 round, and I learned a new combination like this week, so I've been like just going over and over again, and that's what I've been doing. And with Eddie, I've been honestly being more detailed about myself, about my approach to working with Eddie. The way I say things, and even one thing that comes up in Jocko 73 episode 73 is like they talk about detachment, and the question is, what would you look like if you were being recorded right now?
Sometimes I try to imagine, just for the sake of looking presentable at work or, not really acting stupid. I try to visualize that, like, somebody's always watching me. So, I don't know.
Right.
I think
For me, I know my mother says, don't ever do anything that you think wouldn't make me or dad proud. So that's the thing that sticks in my head all the time.
yeah.
And that's what makes me conscious about how I'm acting.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I know I'm completely alone, I do stupid things.
Doesn't everybody? I mean,
Yeah, but for the most part, I try to picture that someone's watching me so that I don't do something dumb or embarrassing
Yeah.
too often.
And it's funny because I think, and this is one thing that Tim Ferriss brings up. No, Tim Ferriss and I think Tony Robbins, as far as like waiting, like letting yourself be upset for 90 seconds and then just letting it go. Tony Robbins is the one who talks about this. But even when even I'm also bad about it. Where something does irk me instantly, where it's like, are you willing? No, not willing. Can you make your mind wait even 10 seconds before reacting? Where I feel like a lot of times the answer is no, at least. And then when Jocko said this, and the way one of the I guess examples that he used and Echo used was like a football film, like when you go to post game, you go watch the film, and then you watch yourself. It's like, man, so that's been like, I guess, building up to today. I've really been trying to take action on what I'm doing, and even with the research that I've been doing, like I said, it's like, okay, what can I implement today? What can I implement right now? One thing I can talk about that I did do was, since it's the beginning of the month, I'm trying to keep this consistent. So I went through my fast this week because it was the beginning of May. So May 1 through 3, I was going to. I'm gonna say I attempted my 72-hour fast, which I'm gonna try to make a monthly thing. And I'm not gonna say I failed, because I consciously put calories in my body at like noon on Wednesday as opposed to like 6 p.m. Wednesday. So I finished it 6 hours early, but I got my blood work done. And like, I might as well be in the damn hospital. like, at least that's my personal opinion. I'm not gonna go to the doctor. I will eventually make my way to the doctor if the changes that I'm gonna make don't, work the way I want them to. But basically, I think I feel like I need to say this out loud to be honest with everybody. Is like, I have high cholesterol. Like, okay, obviously my diet's not the best, and for sure my main thing is sugar intake. Like that is still like my shit. It's
Yeah.
like dubstep. It's my shit right now. And the thing is like sweets and stuff like that. Like it's just, not that it's hard to get away, but I consciously eat it because I like it. I like that. If I get any instant gratification, it's from a fucking candy.
Have you tried substituting it with maybe like some sweet fruit? And I know it's not, fruits still have sugars, but at least it's not as unhealthy as.
Well, because it's complemented with fiber, so it breaks
Yes.
it down.
So like for me, strawberries are some of like the sweetest fruits. So have you tried having strawberries anytime you get a craving for, candy or?
See, and I haven't, and even then, like, let's say I eat like 5 tangerines, because I'll do that. Like
Oh,
we buy like
The
bag.
little-
Yeah, exactly. You buy mandarins and tangerines, and it's like I eat the whole freaking bag. Like, and the thing is, when you eat the whole bag, it's the equivalent to eating a bag of candy, because the sugar's the same.
Right, but it has the fiber that you need though, so it's not that bad.
Just eat the peel too.
Yeah. Well, speaking of peel, well, like for sure the good thing is, as far as peels go, is like lemons. Like
Mhm.
this is actually something that I read earlier. It was within the past few weeks. I tell my mom to do it because she has like lemon with her water now more consistently. But you should blend your lemon peel and seeds, and all, like you should just throw them
The
in.
entire thing.
Yeah, the whole thing, seeds and all, and like have it like that with water. And like I was like, man, like I mean, I didn't know, but it's like okay. But anyways, going back to like the sugar thing, like like I said, I feel like it's almost like we can, if you guys want, we can almost use this as an intervention for myself, because I am trying to work on this, and for the most part, like I said, my 80% of my intake is good. It's 20% that's like not good, and I want to get over it. I want to not be metaphorically held down by my mind about sugar. It's very irritating, but yet I haven't changed it.
Well, my first thought is to tell you not to overthink it, because you do work out like daily. I mean, you're a trainer, so I mean, as long as you can balance those things out, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think most people develop a problem when they eat too much sugar and then they don't work out.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I mean, that's where the obesity problem lies, at its core anyway. But I don't know. I don't know what your blood work's like, and I don't know what your opinion is on it necessarily.
Well, actually,
so.
I'll tell you. I have it here. Hold on, give me
Substitute it with cigarettes.
a second.
Totally kidding.
What's that deal with like have a glass of red wine a day? It's healthy for you. That can't be right. That's never sounded right to me.
I don't believe
know.
it. I don't believe it. Oh, man, I feel like I had some. I wish I would have written the research down, because my thing about like the wine and stuff is like, for me, it's an excuse to have alcohol.
Yeah.
I don't know, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know about the process of making wine, but I don't think either way there's too much bad in one glass.
It depends.
Now I don't know about daily, but at
well, I
least
mean,
in the glass of wine
You know,
itself.
they mix yeast with sugar, and the yeast eats the sugar, and it ferments, and it makes the alcohol, right?
Right.
So that's how it works. So you have different flavors of wine that develop from the different kind of grapes they're using, right? Or some winemakers also like do that with oranges and strawberries and other flavors for certain things. Peaches, I think, is also very common. Anyway, that's another rabbit hole within itself. But the main thing that separates the wines really is the amount of sugar that's left over, right? So, for example, if we're dealing with white wine in comparison to red has a lot more sugar in it.
Right.
Okay. So one of the sweetest white wines, a Riesling, they don't let it ferment that long. So like they pull it out fairly quickly. So it's naturally a sweeter wine, and it's not as dry as a connoisseur would say, I guess, or an amateur connoisseur. Never did really like. Not to go down like another rabbit hole, but I remember like working at City Winery and like learning all this, and then it's like, so how would you describe this kind of wine to to a customer Eddie's? I don't know. It's got a lot of earth tones.
Tastes like
It's
dirt.
it's medium bodied. Just like looking for a whole bunch of like general terms and shit to describe the wine. But it's funny, you learn how to bullshit. So
It's really liquidy.
it's very viscous. Like, just you use like the biggest word imaginable, make it sound
Yeah.
smart, even though you don't know what it really entails.
Or what viscous means.
Well, I know what viscous means, but
I thought it was viscous.
or
viscous is a
you're
different
right. It is
thing.
viscous. Damn it. Nah, you're right. Fuck English. It's viscous. Yeah.
It's not even my first language.
Oh man, I've discussed way too often how like shitty of a language English is with people. But anyway, that's a
Well,
conversation.
let's discuss
for
how
another time.
shitty
Digress.
Andy's blood is. I'm just kidding.
All right, you got the
Yeah,
results.
no, yeah. I got them here. So some of it makes sense because of the fast. So I fasted 60 hours before this blood test, right? And you need at least 12 hours of fasting, water only, before to get in your blood test, just so I guess so your liver can clear and all that stuff, right? Because it does take, and I learned this today, like I guess officially, quote unquote, is because Dr. Rhonda Patrick was on Tim Ferriss yesterday, so I started listening to that today. Fucking Dr. Rhonda, like it's so intricate that I had to listen to it again. But anyways, I digress. Anyways, it takes your liver, and this also makes sense for as far as like diabetes and stuff, because it takes your liver about 10 hours to clean itself, right? So that's why you do even during normal, I guess, eating state, you do want to leave a 10-hour window before you next, which is why, let's say you have your last meal at 8, well, wait till don't snack anymore. Like even snacks don't count, like whether it's almonds or because almonds have like good fats. If you want fruit, you don't want any of that stuff. Excuse me. But learning that is like, man, because I mean, I'm now dealing with this stuff and paying more attention to it. But it started with like my mom and like the specific one that helps, that lets you know or gives you an idea about like where you're as far as like a diabetes like possibility. It's called the A1C. And you can get that test. You can get it done, and it's not that expensive. I think like $25, $30, not that much. But so she talks about that, and because the liver takes that long. Let's say you snack late. Well, then your liver's constantly working trying to get all that sugar out, because it processes all that like glucose and all that stuff. Which that's the first cue on the test. Like even because I get the general wellness. It's $20. Anybody can go. It's cash or check only. You just leave them your name, your phone number, date of birth, and that's it. And the cool thing is they have them by like 3 p.m., so you get them the same day. So anyways, interesting enough, from February to now, my sugar actually went down. Like the general sugar. I think some of that has to do with the fact that I was on a fast for so long. Because even my salts were low. Which that makes sense because all I've been drinking is water, so it's just a flush of the system. Now, going to my proteins, those were high, not by much, but by a whole point, which is a lot. I mean, 1 whole point in this case, in this meter, it's a big deal, and that also makes sense because I still been working out. Like when I fast, I still work out. I still do everything normal. All that changes is just my eating. I don't eat. So that makes sense because the thing is that what I thought in the beginning was that proteins, like, oh, it's going to help you build mass and whatnot. Well, proteins is what helps rebuild your muscle because when you work out, and that's what causes like all that deterioration and whatnot. Yeah. I just didn't know that until now. Like now that I'm like, I guess, listening and researching Dr. Rhonda and Tim Ferriss, all the stuff that he's done in the 4-Hour Body. So that also makes sense. Now, my cholesterol skyrocketed. But cholesterol is still connected and corollary with sugars. So it's not just like fatty foods. You actually want fatty foods. But let's say in the case of like hamburgers, okay, the bun, the bread itself, that. Sugar, like candy, stuff like that. So my cholesterol went up by too much. Like if I took this to my doctor, he'd be like, what the hell's going on? because my doctor's he's kind of stern about like the whole thing. But it's like, dude, I don't need you to tell me to go on a diet. I'm not gonna pay you $90 to tell me, hey man, eat these foods. I already have that paper. I already,
Yeah.
I already have that. And like I said, it's interesting what 20% of my food intake caused. It's, and I say in a cause and effect, in a, okay, I say it in a cause and effect like scenario because like I'm consciously eating, right? I'm eating. I'm not saying, oh, it's the food's fault that I have. I'm just
Right.
for the sake of the podcast, I'm saying the cause was my food intake that I'm consciously eating. The effect was high cholesterol. So that's one thing. Dichotomy, my triglycerides, which is also part of your fats, cut in half, which is good.
Dang.
So something's working, but something's very wrong.
Something
things
is
are
also something else is also working.
Exactly.
On the opposite end.
So okay, so when I initially saw these results at 3 p.m. and this was right before I got tonight around to open the gym, I felt better because like I said, like after jiu-jitsu on Tuesday, I just felt ready to go again. But then when I saw the results, I was like, damn it, like I just didn't expect these results. And one thing, I don't know if it's Josh Waitskin or Adam Robinson or somebody, but it's in that podcast at the end of last year that Tim Ferriss had. And it's like, write down your expectations and expect not to get them. Write down your expectations and get expect the unexpected, right? In that once you write them down. And for me, this was a case for me. It's like, fuck, like, okay, I've been increasing my intake of kale and greens and whatnot, but I've also kept all my bad foods maybe at a constant or a little bit less, but it's been enough obviously to affect me. And everything else is just the LDLs, which is also bad cholesterol, it also falls into that category. It's very, if I can say this word, it's very humbling. And this is one thing that I've told clients at the gym too. It's like, because I do work out every day, obviously it's not enough. And like, I didn't even do this to prove a point because I am trying to better myself. But the results show that you can work out 6 days a week, 5 days a week, eat decent, not well, just eat decent, and it not be enough for your body to say, hey, like, you're good to go. And like I said, it has not raised any questions because now I'm just in the do mode. This just started, this week. I said, I had 7 days where I just like was shitty, and then this week I was like, okay, I'm reestablishing. Now, one side note about this blood test is that I think I should have waited maybe 4 or 5 days after my fast because I think my results would have been different had my body been circulating and metabolizing like normally, or up to normal again, up to speed. Right. So, what I'm developing is that for next month, and well, for the next 3 months, because at least for me, my tracking is only every 3 months. So, my next blood test won't be until August 10th. So, what I'm gonna do is keep my fast the first 3 days, like the first Monday through Wednesday of every month, and then for the 7 days leading up to the 10th for the next 3 months, is eat only specific foods. And I don't know what those are yet. It's gonna revolve around like kale and like primarily greens, and then from there, then go back into like a normal eating state, where I'm eating normal foods. As far as like chicken and meat and stuff, right? And then my next goal is by June 1st, I'm gonna attempt to go into a state of ketosis. That's my goal for this month, is to fall into a state of ketosis, and there's 31 days in May, so I have 26 days to slowly, and even ketosis, like, it's high fat, low, and I'm going for no carb, because carbs, it includes fibers, but it also includes sugars. Mm-hmm. And because labeling, the USDA or however that works, or FDA, I don't know, whatever, or maybe both, you don't have to put so many, like, if it reaches a certain number, then you have to put it on the label.
Right.
And if that's the case, then I'm aiming for no carbs. And what I started yesterday and today, because even me and Eddie went to Whataburger, so I counted those calories as today. So like right now I'm done. Like I can't eat. I'm not gonna eat anymore. You know, I've already counted this drink that I made. It's blueberry concentrate with Jocko tea and water. So I've already counted for those. But if I can start at least evening out my playing field of my macronutrients, which is carbs, fats, and proteins. If I can get 33% of everyone, and what I don't like is that I'm using Fitbit, and as I'm going through the stuff, like I'm having to change all the nutrition labels because they're not quite accurate, or maybe they're old.
Yep.
So I'm basically just creating my own from my own phone, you know. But and I guess it's just time. It doesn't take that much time, but I would rather just scan the barcode and it'd be good to go. Either way, my goal for now is 33% per macronutrient, and then eventually throw the carbs out completely to where it's only fats and proteins, and then see what happens there. And then, because one question that my mom had was like how can you go into state ketosis? You don't know enough. I'm like, the thing is that some people go into ketosis for life. Some people go into ketosis and their body can't handle it. Period. There's this one character. There's this one guy that I don't know if it was Joe Rogan or somebody mentioned it. It was during the Joe Rogan Rhonda Patrick podcast, this recent one. But Dr. Rhonda talks about this guy that they both know. He was going into that state of ketosis, and it didn't work for his body. His body rejected the whole thing. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. So he had to re-engineer his diet. I'm like, this is what I told my mom. I'm like, I might have to do that. I'm like, I don't know it's going to work. I'll find out. But even then, I only plan to do it for like 6 months. Like, I don't plan to do it forever. Mm-hmm. It's just something that can keep me on a path, I guess. You know, it's not necessarily a diet, but it's a full-on, like, regimen. Which, essentially, it's a diet. And we talked about this where, you know, yeah. Brian, you don't like diets. But I'm still trying to figure out a way for it to work for me. Because, like I said, I still work out. You know, I eat decently healthy. You know, I am looking for enough nutrients to put in my body. But that extra stuff is what I'm having trouble leaving out.
What is like a state of ketosis? Like, what is the benefit to being in that state?
Your body runs on sugars, normally eating, right? This change makes your body, or has your body, start running energy on fat. So that's where bacon becomes good, and pork.
I like this already.
And there's a lot of benefits. And today I actually had a little bit of pork today. Like, I had it for lunch. And my mom brought it, you know, whatever, and I had it. And I had that and, like, 4 eggs and, like, just a bunch of, like, you know, high-fat stuff. That's what I had, a lot of high-fat stuff today.
Gives me a reason to go to Denny's and get more of the jalapeno smoked bacon. Oh, yeah.
So, basically, yeah. So, Tim Ferriss does have a method for our body, which I haven't read into it yet. But he basically calls it, like, a slow-carb diet, which eventually it leads you to. So basically, you slow down your carb intake to then raise your fats, keep your proteins the same, and then your body, after some time, and I don't know the time like that, I haven't read this section yet, but after some time, your body starts running energy off of fat and not sugar. And that's the biggest thing about ketosis, is that you're running energy off of fat. So, I mean, which is kind of crazy because it goes against a lot of, like, stuff that was being said 10 years ago, like, oh, fats are bad, you know, and whatnot. And actually, there's this article. Oh, man, now I wish I would have read it. This is my fault, everybody, for thinking it was gonna go one way and it didn't go, you know, or maybe not assessing this episode properly. But there's a article that Joe Rogan brings up in the episode of with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, where sugar, like candy companies and stuff, were paying doctors and scientists to say that fats were bad. And I remember that. I mean, I feel like I've been conscious enough, like, here, and you see it, like, that's why M&M still exists, and they have, like, you know, $1 million company, and, like, all these.
Not only that, but sugar industries were also paying government off to tell people that salt was bad. Yeah. I don't know if you guys remember, like, growing up as kids and like, you know, be like, oh, don't eat too much salt. It's not a real thing.
Yeah. Well, too much salt.
Well,
and also
obviously, like,
iodized. Right.
Yeah, an insane amount. Right.
Right.
Yeah, it was all in that. It's all in that sugar documentary, Fed Up.
Okay.
That's the
haven't
one
seen
I
that
watched maybe about a year ago now.
Okay.
Sounds about right. Life changer for me.
Mm.
Made me just really conscious about what I eat.
Right. And see, like, I guess another thing is that since, because last year I lost 25 pounds. Like, I lost the 25 pounds, and now, even in the fasting state for these past 2 months, I've stayed at 203. That's been my weight for the past 2 months. Even with a fast, like, with no food, I'm still at 203, which I like. So, I'm recomping my body to generate more muscle and stay at the same weight. You know, because I don't want to be heavier and I don't want to be lighter. You know, because even my cousin, even Luis, brought up like, hey man, you should get down to 185, like, you know, and get shredded. That's his thing, is getting shredded.
Mhm.
I was like, man, but I'd be super light. Like, I don't know if I want to be in that state. Not walking. It'd be different if I was competing. You know, let's say jujitsu. If I was doing competitions or whatnot for something of that nature, but not for a walking. You know, walking at 185. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I think I've had to have mentioned to you guys where, you know, at some point I was like at 195, and like I felt great, but I looked sick, and I was like, oh no, this ain't gonna fucking work.
Well, if you look sick at 195, I look sick all the time.
Like, for the way I can describe it, that I remember looking in the mirror, I'm like, I look anemic. Like, I look like
I think
my
that's probably
body
just
does
a
not-
contrast of
Maybe.
your self-image. Like you were
Maybe.
used to seeing yourself at this,
Maybe.
you know, in this weight, and then now that you're lighter, you know, less full, you think you look sick.
Exactly.
But for somebody who, let's say, just met you at 195, they thought you looked fat.
Right. Yeah. Oh, right. No, absolutely. I mean, that could quite well be it. Just.
Not that you looked fat. I'm just saying.
Right. No, I know. It's just an interesting thing going from last year, and even last year, like, the only difference of last year was like I counted everything I ate. So if I didn't have enough calories left over, I couldn't have a candy because I didn't have any calories. So
Right.
that's also another thing I have started, but I have had a candy. It's still like, you know, like I think I talked about this with Brian, where like even like Jocko, like, you know, his motivational stuff on YouTube, like, it doesn't work anymore because I heard it all of last year. It doesn't work, you know, and I'm positive that's why it doesn't work for my cousin anymore, because he hears it all the time. He watches those YouTube videos, and it doesn't work for me.
Well, at some point it starts to just get preachy, right?
Yes.
At least like for me, it'll start to get preachy, and then it'll start to feel just inauthentic, you know, just not real to me. But wrap this up really quick with this
Good.
thought. We've been like talking about your blood work, and
Yeah,
you mentioned about how you know you're taking this to work, to training at 9 round, and you're using it as an example, like, hey, like no one's perfect. See, like, and you're telling your clients this, and like, you know, you're working on stuff.
Right.
Like, how do you think that ties into like to your mood from last week and things you've been realizing and processing?
Repeat that question.
Sure. So you're just taking this example that we've been talking about, your blood work and the diet you're trying to go through, and you're trying to enter a state of ketosis and all this stuff. So you're talking about how you're taking your blood work over to 9 round,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just using that as an example for your clients, saying like, hey, no one's perfect, and like, see, like, I'm still working on it. Everyone's always working on it,
Right.
kind of thing. Does that like tie in to you with maybe like some of the things you've been like realizing and processing?
The process, like,
Okay.
you know, it's a constant work in progress. It's a work in progress constantly, and that's probably the main thing. And that's why even today when I posted like my Snapchat like username thing, and I said, you know, join the process, because it's like I am working on this, and some of these clients that inspire me. We have this one client, and she's lost over 50 pounds,
Fuck.
and she wants to lose more. And I said, if you want to lose more, you need to get gritty. And it's not hard for me to say that, because I did that last year. And while I'm okay with where I am at now today, my blood work says otherwise, so I can't. And if let's say I continue on this, I mean, obviously unhealthy path, I cannot be optimal for Brian. I can't be optimal for Eddie. I can't be optimal for 9 round. I can't be optimal for my household. So, yes, taking this to 9 round, showing them, it's like, look, and this is another thing that I stress, is like, it's important to get your blood checked. Because everybody's like, oh, you look thin today. Oh, thanks. Look at my blood. It's shitty. Completely shit. At least in my opinion. And like, oh, man, there's this one client. She's like, oh, man, I wouldn't even want to see my blood work. And it's like, it's almost like checking your weight. When you have a scale at home, you check it every day. it would, if I could check it every day, it'd probably turn into that. And I don't know if that would be a possible solution, but I can bet it would only be temporary. The change needs to be with me, and that's what I'm trying to dig into my head, and I'm working on it, but it just hasn't happened.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, man, because it to me it ties into all the stuff that I've talked about, and it led me to this point last year and up until today, of even in extreme ownership, it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate.
Yeah.
See, I'm able to tolerate this, except that my blood results say I'm shitty. You know. So, like I said, like rhetorical questions, rhetorical statements, because a lot of this is me, and this is ridiculous, but it's what I'm dealing with right now. It's what I'm trying to fix this, because it's very fixable, but again, the mind.
Well, at least you're staying like positive with it, and you're trusting in the process. I think is like the big quote I take away every time you say that. Is like just trust in the process, keep with the process. Like I think people forget that like everything we do is a process, and like I just like seen like a lot of negativity lately, and it just kind of boiled up for me when I saw like this one dude on Facebook make like this super negative blanket statement about millennial generation, and I was just like, man, it's like that is like such bullshit. And I called him out on his negativity, but he wasn't necessarily having it, and I'm just like, well, I was like, I'm not gonna like pursue this further. So,
Right.
but I don't know, stayed seeing the negativity,
Yeah.
and people just forget that it's a process. Like I think like the last thing I left him with like in that conversation was like is like we're not like stuck in a deplorable state, like we're just always merely on the brink of another improvement, so it's just it's the process. It's the fucking process. Just trust it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, one thing that Dr. Rhonda Patrick brings up in the newest episode with Tim Ferriss, because I think the initial question basically allowed her to give an overview of what she's about. In case people haven't heard about her yet, or any new Tim Ferriss followers. And the way she put it was, she wants to find optimizations or ways to optimize your lifestyle, right? So then you can be fully productive. Which to me it makes sense, because it's totally corollary with everything I want to do with my mission of helping others. But I guess getting back into a better state of mind this week and getting these blood tests, like, well, it starts with me. I can't, and I feel like I'm just reiterating, I'm fucking digressing, but that's what it is. And going back to, I guess, talking about missions and whatnot, and people not quite understanding mine, is that maybe because I have this opinion about myself, that I want to find the process that works, even when your brain, even when your actions differ from your mind, or your actions differ from what you already know. We know sugar's bad. I know sugar's bad. I know candy is not good for you, for your teeth and everything, and plus for your body. But yet my actions say otherwise. So finding that process that gets me through that. Because one thing that actually I've talked about this with one of the 9-round friends, was like realizing that candy is the same type of addiction as cigarettes.
Yep.
Or alcohol.
I was about to say, just like you can decide not to have a drink, I don't want to say it's as simple, because we all have our different little addictions, for lack of a better word.
I can say no to alcohol.
You could say no
all
to
day.
Sugars.
Right.
Just like you say, get up and do. Well, don't.
Right. Exactly. No, you're right, and absolutely right.
It to me, it doesn't have to necessarily be a different process or a different method. Just don't.
Yeah.
It may be harder, but
Right.
don't.
Right.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This book I've been reading, The Four Loves by C.S. Lewis. It's chapter 2. He kind of talks about pleasures, and he derives pleasures into two categories, much like he divides love into two categories. So with pleasures, he says, like, we have these two kinds of pleasures, and there's the kind of pleasure that you get where it's unexpected. Like the example would be you pass by a rose bush, and you get that pleasurable smell from it that you weren't expecting. And you say, that's nice, and you appreciate it, and you go on with your day, and that's it, and that's pleasurable. And then you have like pleasures you get, like out of like a desire for it or a need for it. So it's like a selfish pleasure, if you will. Like I guess in this case, the analogy would be the candy, right?
Right.
The candy was pleasurable, but you also like craved it, you desired it, you needed it, and so, or not needed it, but
Right. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Not that my body needed it, but my actions, I still went to go get the candy or buy the candy or eat the
Right.
candy.
So it's like a selfish fulfillment, basically, right? And he ties that back to the when he breaks down love into two very similar categories, where we have need love and we have gift love. So pretty much word for word, what it means, like need love is selfish love. It's love we crave, like love we need to satisfy ourselves. Like we crave attention, we crave relationships, and you know, for a lot of reasons. And then gift love, which is the selfless love that you love somebody unconditionally without expecting anything in return.
Right.
So I don't know. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah,
Tie it in.
absolutely. Yeah, and you've slightly brought that up, and of course I have pondered on that. But yeah, man.
Well, he I guess
Go ahead.
going back to the pleasure thing, he I guess he talks about those two, and then he talks about the need pleasure. The one where you're desiring these things, and then you get your fix, and then it's done. And then like just about being careful with those kinds of pleasures because those pleasures become addictions.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, it just took me back a little bit.
That's fair enough. Yeah, man. I want to apologize right now. I don't think we're done. I don't know where we're at in this podcast episode, but it's what I'm dealing with. And like I said, today I've done good, but now that I'm releasing this, and I did want to make it a point to at least. I didn't want to go on for an hour about this stuff. I didn't plan on it, but I knew I was gonna mention this at some point. Because I feel like if I can't be honest out loud, it doesn't count. That's me. If I can't, not that I haven't realized it, but it's like going to AA.
Yeah.
Like it's for me, it's the same thing. At least that's what I tied it into. It's like, okay, for people who think and see me on social media and they think one thing, and if you can listen to this, and I'm not even saying don't be judgmental. Like the initial human reaction is to judge.
Right.
Well, check this out. So we judge because we're looking for value. That's like the initial thing because of the selfishness. Again, it just goes back to like this book. It's just been blowing my mind every day.
Yeah.
But we judge like just because we're looking for value. Like we're less eager to like analyze and like critique things, and like we're more eager to just like judge it and make an assessment on it because like we're trying to humanly decide if it's valuable to us or not.
Yeah.
And then once we've categorized it as valuable or like not valuable, then that's where the judgment kind of comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So
That makes total sense. There was who did I read this from? There was a quote I read from a Greek philosopher that said something along the lines of, that this one person said that I don't judge you, and he said, no, well, you should if you consider yourself my friend. Like you should judge a person and then decide whether they're your friends or not. And that makes total sense. I feel that most of the time when I say like, oh, I'm not judging, it's because I don't really care about that person, or I don't care about their actions.
right.
And if I value you as a friend, then maybe I am gonna judge you to determine whether it's whatever you're doing is good or bad, or whether you're valuable to me, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, or even I'm just kind of realizing this now that we're talking about it now, but I feel like like I'll judge like friends, but not just out of like value for me or what's going on with like me personally, but sometimes also just for what I feel is in their best self-interest that they're not catching, and that's kind of where
Value like for themselves.
right, and I feel like that's where I start to make judgments most of the time.
So judge me, motherfuckers.
And that's the thing is, like, maybe I need to go back and like redefine what judging is for me,
Go
because
ahead.
I feel like most of the things that my closest friends do, I don't really judge, and I think in the sense is because most of the time I trust what they're doing, and that what they're doing is in their best interest.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why I don't make a judgment call, or I don't try to judge their actions or define them, because I have full confidence that what they're doing is in their best interest. And maybe if I see something like they're they're doing something destructive for themselves, then I'd be a little more judgmental. I'm like, hey, watch out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it still makes sense to me.
One thing that Tim Ferriss brings up as far as the example he primarily gives in this conversation was like having incentives, having enough incentives, and for me, it's like I'm living. How is that not enough incentive for me to stop eating candy? Because that's how deep I think about it. Like today, even like today, like I brought up I brought up self-esteem last time to Eddie for the last week's podcast, and where you get so much and either you continue to do more with that self-esteem or you let it give you a plateau, right? And to me, I tie it in the same way. Where you get that, and it's like, okay, so then, at least that's me right now, because it's like incentives. Like, okay, I'm living. Like, why can I not?
Well, someone with diabetes and constantly injecting insulin and stuff is also living.
Right.
So it's just how do you want to live?
Yeah.
That should be your incentive, I think. If the health thing is such a big deal, I guess, if you want your blood to be, at its optimum, that's the incentive. Not that you're living, but, how well are you living, the quality of your own life.
Yeah. It's so crazy how like one thing and the one thing is candy in general, because I sour candy, chocolate. I mean, I fucking dig it all. Like, it doesn't matter what candy. Period. That's why I'm saying like one thing. It's one thing that's created, and it's sugar.
I feel like we're instigating all these like deep thoughts all around
Candy.
Sugars, yeah, candy and Andy's little addiction.
And man, and because that like I said, optimal. Like if I'm not optimal, then I can't do the work that I want to do anyways.
Right.
Well, hey man, to be fair, all the studies show that being addicted to sugar is the exact same. Like your brain lights up the same way when you're doing cocaine. So
It's crazy, bro.
either sugar is really, really bad or cocaine's not
Really-
that bad.
Right?
That's I never thought about that. Oh man, I will get over this hump, but it's thinking about it as we are talking about this. It's the only thing I get instant gratification, because everything else I'm doing is gonna take me 5 to 10 years.
Delayed gratification.
You
Man,
know?
find something else to give you instant gratification.
Man, I was like, well, ever since
Good.
you said that the first time
Yeah, sorry,
in this
sorry.
podcast. No,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry,
like
man.
people taking 15 to 20 years to realize their career change. Well,
Yeah.
my mom is that person. Like in essence, she worked here for the local university for UTRGV when it was Pan Am. Like she'd been working there since she was like out of high school, and then working her way through night school at the university.
Yeah.
And like getting her degree over like I think it took her like 8 or 9 years, just doing all the night classes and working and stuff. So like she's worked for the university for a very long time, up until like we were sophomores in high school, and she'd been working for the university like several years before like she had me. So at least 15 to 20 years, like guesstimate, safe guesstimate. How old are you when you're a sophomore? Like 15, 16?
Yeah, about
Something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
about.
definitely somewhere between 15 and 20 years, if not maybe a little more than 20. She'd been working at the university. And then all of a sudden she just like got sick of it and realized I've just always wanted to do teaching. And then so she like took all the certification tests like herself and like studied for them herself, like didn't take any classes for it, just did it. Just made it happen.
Yeah.
And then now she's a teacher going on, well, since we were 15 or 16 and we're 24, 25 now, 10 years. Almost, yeah.
Man, stories like that give me hope. Where like, I guess maybe what I'm doing now is a little bit exciting, but who knows? Maybe in 15 years I'll get tired of it and I'll do something that's even more exciting for me.
Yeah.
Like that kind of change of pace. Like I can't. It kind of makes me feel like no matter what, I may not be bored with my life. For the rest of my life. If I ever do reach a plateau or a funk, like in 10, 15 years, some midlife crisis, like stories like that kind of give me hope. Like, hey, this isn't what I want to do anymore. Let me do something else. Or maybe I've built a different interest and let me try that.
Right. It's funny to me, like Walker posted this thing on Facebook. You probably didn't see it. Safe to say you didn't see it.
Yeah.
But it was, they're talking about the Dave & Buster's opening in McAllen off the expressway. and it's like 280 jobs. They're looking to hire 280 people. And I was just joking because I made this joke because I hate it when people do this on social media. So I just did it as a joke, but I commented on that story that Walker posted, and I was like, "Hey Walker, I'm currently looking for work. If you know anyone who's hiring, could you please PM me?"
And it's so common, too.
Oh God, I hate seeing that. And I was like thinking about why I hate seeing that, and it's because it just feels like people are just looking for work for the sake of looking for work and not looking for something that's going to make them happy or make them feel fulfilled or have purpose. You know, like they're just out in the sea of job markets, just looking for income.
Wandering without a cause.
Yeah. Like, why would you? Like for me, when I'm looking for a job, I think about, well, what am I passionate about? What
do you wanna do?
What do I want to do? Yeah, what can I envision myself doing and whatnot. And even like when I started working at City Winery, I was really hesitant about doing that because I was really caught up with my security job, which I was making my own work schedule with, which I enjoyed very much. And you know, with City Winery, I knew I wouldn't be able to do that. But at the end of the day, it was kind of a no-brainer for me. The money was going to be, you know, twice as much, and like, well, yeah, I need it, so we're going to do it. I never thought I'd necessarily enjoy working at a restaurant, but I knew at some point in my college years, I knew that I wanted to try bartending or try bar backing or work behind a bar. I just always thought it'd be the most fun thing to work behind a bar, and it absolutely fucking was. Lived up to every expectation that I ever hoped it would. So yeah, just going back to it, even though I never envisioned myself like doing that job, part of me was very curious to try it, and so I was excited about it, and I loved doing that job. I loved what I did. Like I was very proud of the work I did with that job. So I just when I go looking for a job, I just take those things into consideration, and I don't think I could ever just like fall into a job because they were hiring. Like I feel like everyone's hiring, or at least taking an application.
Everyone's always hiring.
Yeah, they're hiring people. They're looking for people just with value. What value do you bring to them? If you're just someone going in because you need the income, like it's not going to be valuable. Like, well, Walker, what if you were just like trying to play music with me because you needed the income? Like, I wouldn't want you around at that point.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be that fun to be around either.
Yeah.
And he's like, I need to talk to you, Eddie.
Can we pause real quick? No, just kidding. But okay, like that, and even then, it's like, oh, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
I'm like, bitch, you're applying for a job with my company.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't even have a company to like say this about, but I see it, and that's one thing that I do wish I had the resume years under me, because I could maybe say this with more what people would say experience. Like, oh, he has experience, so he like I know I see the way you react. I see your face, and the general virtues, the general reactions are the same. And right now, and we've talked about this before, you know, where Eddie, you brought up, you know, what JFK said, you know, not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. It's the same thing, because people go in there like they want $10 an hour. It's like, shut the hell up. You know, I almost feel like Tim Kennedy sometimes. Motherfucker, like Tim Kennedy cusses a lot. Anyways, that's what I meant by Tim Kennedy, because if you watch Jocko podcast with Tim Kennedy, he just cussed a ton. Anyways, I digress. Back to the root of that, where it's like, go work. And if you have an idea, then go what's the word? Like action, but go fulfill that idea, but understand it's going to take you the process. It's going to take you years.
Yeah.
And for me, is that music is too much a part of just myself, my inner soul, that I'm not going to leave it. So it's a part of what I do. That's why, like, I guess what I wanted to say as far as like the Tim Ferriss thing for the final time was like, I found where I belong through all my jobs. Excuse me, fuck. I worked at Pizza Hut for like 2 months in the senior year of high school. I hated cooking. I'm like, I'll never work food. And I'm pretty sure I've said this. I'll never work food again. Retail, when I worked there during college, I worked 3.5 years retail. I said, I'll never work here again, but I realized where I fit. I think I said this at the beginning of this episode, where, you know, I am optimal at the middle management position, because I love talking to bosses, and I love communicating with employees that are on the grind every single day, making the ship work. I actually wrote a blog post about this, where I just briefly mentioned that, where I guess leading up to maybe this episode and me trying to be truthful to everybody. And I mean, I've been truthful to myself. Like I talk to myself on a daily basis, but to say this out loud and work on overcoming this maybe little thing to somebody else it's not a little thing for me, obviously. You know, because I can say no to alcohol. I can say no to tortillas. Oh man, I don't know how many people I get at the gym like, oh, how do you lose some weight? I'm like, just don't eat bread, don't eat tortillas, don't eat tortillas, not even corn. No, not even corn tortillas. Zero, nothing.
What about pizza? I love pizza and tacos.
All
How
of
am I
that,
gonna eat
all of that.
tacos without tortillas?
Yeah, exactly. And and that's the thing, like saying this out loud and talking with my clients after this blood work, especially the ones that I've grown to just become friends with, and showing them this, like, see, it doesn't fucking matter. It's like, no, you know, no sugars, no sugar. Like that's what I'm getting to. Anyways, back to middle management that's where I belong. And even like being surrounded with you guys on a not quite a daily basis anymore. Like I said, we've been getting busy on our own thing. For me, because even Tim Ferriss mentions where he found that he needed to be like maybe not necessarily on a team, but he needed to be surrounded by people. And I know when I'm surrounded by people, I'm not even more liable, but just staying busy and communicating with others helps me just go and do, and then I'm able to then teach what I have learned, VRIO, you know, or anything about health, fasting. Hey, you're fasting? Yeah. And I had one client comment on my Instagram post. The post was from like 3-4 days ago, but she commented today, and she's like, "You fasted this week?" She's like, "You're so dedicated." I'm like, "Oh yeah, if only you saw my blood results." Like, that's my dichotomy. Is that it's like I think otherwise. I'm in a positive state of mind because I know I'm gonna go through change for these next few months, but still, the initial result of my blood work leads to then, can I be that optimal middle manager? And my answer is no, because I'm not feeding myself correctly. So I will digress and fade away.
Fade. I tried to do a fade on the microphone, everybody. Don't know if it worked well. Walker might have to do some things technologically.
I won't. I man, that's another thing about like as far as like this media stuff, like it's all automated. Like automated in the sense of like I do basically exactly the same thing every single time so that it doesn't take all my time. You know, that's one thing that I had to learn. 'Cause even when I talked to Alex when we were at the island, and I was telling him about the podcast, and I was like, dude, I was spending like 12 to 15 hours like editing this podcast, and I realized I cannot spend that much time on an edit because we have rehearsal Wednesday. I have to be at 9 round sometimes twice a day. You know, 2 different times in the day, and then if my mom needs something or my dad something, I'm readily available. Maybe they need me to go back to the gym. I like being readily available because, man, and this might be even selfish, like wanting to feel needed.
Well, basic human emotion. Like it's a very basic human thing. We crave attention. We crave to be needed.
Yeah, because I wouldn't say attention, but I guess the good more out of this is like I like helping people. Like I like learning. Like even then, like I would work for someone if they said, "Hey, can you learn this for me?" And then like whether it's like teach it to them and simplify and teach it to them, or something along learning. And I've told this to Brian where like, you know, it seems like my next thing will be revolving around learning. But that in itself is like 5-10 years away.
And I feel like that's always been a thing regardless, though. Like, we've always been learning.
Right.
And that's something, like, you and I have talked about, that regardless of what we do or where we are in the future, we're always going to be learning.
Right.
That's a very interesting, not learning, sorry, but go back to what you said, like, literally just 10 seconds before that, about, like, the craving to feel needed to be able to help people because you want to help people.
Right.
That's a very interesting mix of both, like, what C.S. Lewis would call need love and gift love. Like, you like, selfishly crave, like, to be needed, but you want to use being needed for, like, gift love, for selflessness.
And see,
that's a very interesting blend.
And see, it puts me right back in the middle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's both. So I'm right in the middle, and that's where I stand with everything. When I got promoted in retail, I stopped there. Like, I could have gotten promoted again. I said, no, I don't want to get promoted again because I can't do this and I can't do that. And now with Eddie, he's the boss. I then give my opinion. We work on that or whatever. But then let's say we're in a band meeting or whatever. It's like, okay, guys, what do you guys have to? We need your opinion. We need your feedback. I need to know. We need to know. Eddie needs to know. And then we go from there. Here at home, I'm still the son. You know, I'm not. I don't own this house. You know, I still play the middle part. So you're saying need love, give love. For it makes sense. That part makes sense to me because I'm right in the middle, and that's where I fit.
Yeah. Well, it definitely now that I'm letting that sink in and process, like it definitely makes sense because I think one of the questions I formed reading that book that I was talking to my friend John who bought me the book. We had a good life talk over the phone about a week ago now, and he basically told me, he's like, man, he's like, you know what you need right now? He goes, like, you need like this book. You need to read this book. I was like, dude, I'm down. And he's like, send me your address so I can send it to you. I was like, cool. And then he followed up and sent it to me. And now it's been like just the hugest life changer ever for me currently.
Yeah.
So anyway, like one of the first questions I thought of while reading through these passages about need love and gift love, and while like at first it's like at first glance need love is like, okay, well it's like selfishness, like that's not cool. Like we shouldn't be selfish people.
Right.
Like we shouldn't do that, and we should try to eliminate it as much as possible. And that's like that, at first glance that's what we think, but there's no solution to that. Like you need it there. Like it's I guess it's the dichotomy of everything too.
Right. Right.
Right. Like we need that basic human instinct of like of we want to feel needed and we want to feel craved. And that stems back to like our relationship with God. Like need love is our direct relationship with our Creator. You know, like everyone's caught up in religion for. I mean, there's really no nice way to paint it. And I don't mean it in a mean way, but like we're caught up with religion because we're selfish, because we want greater things, and we don't want to like die in vain and just like die and go nowhere.
Right.
You know, it's all like a selfish like reasoning at its core. So, but C.S. Lewis like takes a lot of time in the book trying to reconcile that, like you know, with countering that with gift love, with being selfless, right? So, like you know, he just goes through the basic cycle of you know, like from the father to the son, and then the you know son gives to the world, and then in doing so gives back to the father. So it's just that never-ending cycle. So I guess
Right.
like what I'm trying to get to as I'm wrapping up this blabbering thought. Sorry, everybody.
That's all right.
Is that you know, it makes sense for you to want to feel needed, and then you want to feel needed because you want to give selflessly. That makes
Right.
entire sense because that's the whole cycle of things.
Oh yes,
It's all that sugar.
dude. Maybe it's a lack of sugar.
Have you been
Like,
taking your alpha brain?
Actually, I'm not an alpha brain right now. That might be a problem. No, I had to. Oh man, fuck. What was the last thing you said, Eddie?
Just that it makes sense why you you know, want to be needed to give selflessly.
Before I forget.
That's the cycle.
So in high school, I did mention this to both of you, because I had this vision when I meditated, was that I was the worst leader ever. Ever. And I will say ever. I was the worst. Because in retrospect, even 2 years after these experiences, I saw it and I was like, what an asshole. And I told you this, Brian, about me being an asshole. I've said this for years. And everybody has their opinion, and I'm just telling you my opinion of myself. Back then, I was on the drum line. I made the drum line, and for those of you that, you know, aren't from Edinburgh, or, you know, go to Edinburgh High School or went to Edinburgh
Or
High
just
School.
don't live in Texas in
Oh,
general.
yeah. So obviously marching band, and for me it was a big deal. I chose marching band over football. You know, I could have played football and I wouldn't have been on the drum. I wouldn't have been in marching band. Now my decision was like, if I make drumline, I won't play football. If I don't make drumline, I'm gonna play football. And that was it. I made the drumline. Cool. Done deal. That was it. The next 4 years were written in stone as far as what I was gonna do. I wasn't gonna play football. I was gonna play in band, and I was gonna play baseball. Well, my freshman sophomore year, I was not sectioned or anything because I was underclassman. Fine. And so then we get to my junior year. Well, then up until then, had lost like the veterans. Like I was the only veteran of the tenor group. I'm not even gonna go into tenors. It's the drum that I played.
Well,
Okay?
it's the quads, right?
The quads, yeah. Quads, yeah. We call them tenors because there's 5, so it's a quintet, but just tenors. Anyways, by going into junior year, I was the only veteran, so there was no competition. I literally played with everybody trying out. I played with them. Like So like, because a lot of them were nervous and whatnot, and I prepared well. Like up until that point, I prepared well, but I knew I was gonna make it. There's no way I wasn't gonna make it. I was the only one who had played it before the past 2 years. So this is gonna go on. This is going on my third year. So naturally, I'm in the middle. So I'm the section leader, and I'm with two new guys. Which one was a friend Eric, who's our age, and then Nate, who's a year younger than us. So we go through that, and I could just remember complaining about how bad they played. And one thing that I'll never forget, and maybe this is one thing that like haunts my subconscious, and I'll never forget this. One time, me and Frankie were talking in the band hall. This was in the morning, and I was complaining, and I was saying bad things about these guys, right? And out of nowhere, Nate appears, and I didn't know he was there, and I was still talking. And I'll never forget this. And Frankie's like, dude, like he's right there. I was like, well, good, he should hear it. I said that. And Nate was like, well, if you'd practice with us, we would be better. If I would have trained him up.
Right.
What do I talk about now? Training up your subordinates.
Yeah.
So, continuing, go through junior year, and for senior year, I don't prepare. I learned the music like the day of, no preparation. I assumed I'd be on the line because I had already been for 3 years. My All Valley sucked. I to this day I still hate All Valley. For me, that's just me. It just wasn't my thing. It wasn't my thing. That's why our senior year of high school, I got, and this isn't it's not for the sake of the award, but I got like marching band, like best marching or some shit. I got some award, remember? And it's not the award, but it's the fact that I did love marching. I loved marching season. I did love it. But my work ethic was so poor because by that time my ego was so damn big. So going to senior year, no preparation. And literally I only made it because I was a senior. And Ram was like, dude, like you won by a point. Yeah. And then I was a cocky little motherfucker. So I was like, yeah, cool. I'm on the line though.
Yeah.
Right? So we go through senior year of marching band, and I'm the only one who knows like all the important tenor parts. So I'm not in the middle because All Valley, Eric made All Valley, so he's in the middle. I'm now not section leader. But the way the show was coordinated and all the tenor parts, I played all the important parts because I was the only one with that experience, regardless. So in essence, I was semi-section leader because I played all the parts. And now I compare it to like almost like achieving your blue belt and not being that good. You're not earning it, or maybe thinking because you earned your blue belt you're just the best. That's the way I compare it now. This is just talking right now fresh. But so I go through senior year and I then do that, and senior year I actually tried I put effort into All Valley because I like the music. Like whatever we were playing for the tryouts, I'm like, oh, I can dig this. Like I'll learn it. And I didn't make it, and the crazy thing is that this is just personal opinion, but I literally practiced, and for some of the guys that I sat in the room with, that I played with in the room with, like I was like, man, like I at least did better than that guy. Like I just didn't understand. So looking back, I was in a state of confusion ultimately. Confusion and egotism, right? I guess if that's a word. Finally, graduate. I then go into freshman year of college. I'm going to A&M Corpus, and I start getting ready to move away and whatever. I end up moving back, right? So I take a semester off. And realized I needed to... Finally, I got everything situated in my personal life because at this time I had just come out of a relationship that was complete poison that I didn't see until I moved back. Like that December that I decided, hey, I need to go back to Corpus. Like, besides it being easier, like to get into University of Corpus, or that I was already accepted. I just need to re-register for the classes. But I wanted to be in Corpus. So then and eventually I'll talk about my retail experience and whatnot. But finally I found Bachelor of BA, Bachelor of Business Administration. Working retail by this time. Realized I fit in the middle. now we're here today, and I'll still never forget the day Nate said, "If you would practice with us, we would be better."
Man, it's crazy how that's stuck with you all this time.
Yeah. I think some things just kind of like, I guess they resonate depending on where your mind is.
Yeah.
Like they say that your mind remembers, well, your mind like stores every detail of every memory. It's just, kind of difficult to pull up certain things. But I feel like, depending on where you're at now, you could probably remember something that happened in the past and it just echoes, even more because of the situation. So I guess going now through all these like leadership talks and insights now, it's kind of like it
Well,
brings back that memory.
Yeah, well, I mean, just like how we started this whole podcast, you're talking about speed dating, how you didn't get to do it, and then we started talking about speed dating, and then I mentioned how we used to do it in my fraternity, and then I met this girl, and then I had a bad date. I've never thought about that since it
Until
happened. Like I had completely forgotten it happened until we had jogged it.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, it's funny how that'll happen, how that works.
I think it's super helpful though. Like, well, at least in Andy's case, how that resonates, and it only adds to your mission now, or
Right.
or where you belong now.
Right. And that ultimately that, and like saying this out loud to you guys, I feel like at some points we've off the podcast, off the air, I've brought up different things and whatnot, but like that, like this particular storyline here that I just talked about, it stems from from that time. That's 10 years ago. I mean, almost 10 years. I mean, let's just say 10 years ago. And what have I talked about lately, is how important like your early childhood years are, and then your adolescence. Where you're veering, but hopefully you can be steered in a good direction. And like for me, that in retrospect, I was a terrible leader, and knowing that I was a terrible leader, I want to help others understand. For one, besides leadership, not for one, besides a leadership, where you fit. Talking about the job availabilities, there's jobs everywhere. I'll never forget this one time when I was living in Corpus. This one guy, he's like, looking for a job. I have a CDL. ... No food. And I was like, so you don't want a job? And I knew this guy pretty well, so I was like, so you don't want a job? And there's no reply, obviously. Like this was a time. This was like early Facebook for me. Like I had just gone on Facebook.
So he was looking for a truck driving job, but he didn't want to drive food.
No. Like he was looking for. He said looking for any job. He has like credentials as CDL.
Oh, okay.
But ... No food. Like no food
like
industry.
no food. Yeah.
Yeah, no food industry. Sorry, yes. So that's what he meant. So I'm like, so you don't want a job? Because McDonald's is down the street. They're hiring, and like in Corpus particularly, like they have a McDonald's for every Whataburger. They have a few McDonald's too. Like there's actually a lot of like those fast food restaurants.
Right.
Anyways, but that finding where you fit, and even Gary Vee talks about that. Jocko, I think, means it, but he says it in different ways. Because his thing is like obviously military. I mean that's his background. That's what he knows. For me, even though I'm only 25, I'm glad I was able to connect with Tim Ferriss in that sense of like, it didn't take me long to realize where I fit. And for Tim Ferriss, he was part of that Silicon Valley brink in the early 2000s. Like he was part of that, and now he's doing his thing, and now he's able to do his podcast, and he's written 4 books, maybe 3-4 books, because he has 4 Hour Body, 4 Hour Body, 4 Hour Chef, Work Week, Tools of Titans. It's 4 books that are all over 300 pages of like great material, and it's all easy to read too. It's not hard to read. But he found his place, and that's part. Honestly, finally, the few times that I've mentioned Tim Ferriss in his 6-month thing, I think this is my final. I think this was my point, was that parallel that does drive me to continue to learn and watch Jocko podcasts and listen to Tim Ferriss and listen to Gary Vee and listen to even Joe Rogan. And now I'm very particular about Joe Rogan's guests, because the comedians, they have great stories, because that's why they're comedians. Because they have great stories, so they tell them. Cool. Right now, I'm not interested in that. I'm very little about entertainment. I work in the entertainment industry for all intents and purposes with Eddie. It's a job. It's a business. I keep my head in that. Cause I keep my head in that mindset because it helps me get stuff done. Okay, that we know that. But going back to the original of like Joe Rogan having interesting interesting people, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, Jocko Willink. I've said this over and over again, but these people, even Tim Ferriss. I watched one, and this was like I think when like 4 Hour Workweek was coming out. Like Tim Ferriss was like on Joe Rogan like back in the like a while back. So that alone, you know, it's been a minute. Anyways, but going back to the root again is finding where you belong, and building on that. Gary Vee talks about doubling down on your strengths and that stuff. And because I know I was a shitty leader 10 years ago, I don't want to be that person, and I want to help people, not just lead, but to me, tying in the VRIO is like, how can you do that in society? Let society be the company. And how are you valuable? How are you rare? And if you're gonna be imitated, are they for the right reasons? You should want to be imitated, but they should be for good value, for good values. Personal leverage, well, yeah. How are you still individual? You as an individual, how are you still gonna, provide for wherever you belong? And that, I would say, sums up my process this week of that, getting out of my funk and connecting VRIO to life, not just companies, not just, oh, how am I going to make a profit? Oh, how can I increase my profit margin? No, how can I bring more value to these gentlemen here in front of me? How can I bring more value to the customers, the clients that pay to go to 9Round? How can I bring more value to this household that raised me? So
that's interesting because I think that's a big thing in The Go Giver, and how you read this already like a while back, and it's still, I guess, a very important subject, topic, objective. To bring value to everything that you do.
Right. Maybe some of it's stemmed from that seed, that book. 'Cause I read it quick, man. I remember I told you, I'm like, dude, I read this book. I think it was less than 24 hours that I read this book.
Yeah.
And it's a short book, but yes, but going back to the root of, giving value back and really putting that to action. Ultimately, putting that to action. I feel like I've talked way too much.
No, I feel like this entire episode, not entire, but a good, well, your
This
funk.
episode. Well,
This episode is
I
brought.
understand
This
what you
episode is brought to you by Walker's Funk.
Well,
We'd like to thank our
I feel like
sponsors.
your entire episode was really good.
This episode was brought to you by Walker's Funk. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Sour Patch Kids and Sweet Tarts. And
See, Eddie knows Sour Patch Watermelon. That's
Yeah.
my shit. That's my shit right
Sour
there.
Skittles.
Sour Skittles, all
Skittles.
that stuff, man.
Well,
Mr.
you know what it
Goodbar?
is. You know what it is for me. Guess what it is for me. I bet you know what it is.
Hershey's.
Yep.
Hershey's bar.
Which one?
The chocolate
Almonds.
one.
With almonds. Yeah.
With almonds.
With almonds.
But man, okay, yeah. Because I didn't, like I said, I didn't quite expect this, and because to me it's like I tie in being humble, and the way Gary Vee puts it, because he admits his ego, but he also says, but you have to be humble because you have to listen.
Yes.
And I agree. So like I said, beginning, I would like to apologize. Maybe I would like to apologize more for like the stutters and the space in between these points that I've either reiterated 10,000 times or whatever. But to talk this much is a rarity, and I don't want to do it often.
Well, you know what? I think, not to say that me and Brian aren't like going through our own things, but I think you went through a really big life thing within the past week or so. I think it's only fair that we got to talk about it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I don't think you go through these things, often at all. And I guess it's a big deal, for you to get your results back. Leading the life that you do, at least health-wise, and getting your results and realizing that, maybe it is, this one thing that you're lacking in, that you could do better. to, like you said, I guess, be that at your optimum to. How do I put this? To be I guess, for lack of a better word, be the image that you want to be for like everybody in your life.
Right.
I think it's fair.
And with all the gratitude to you guys, before we conclude, we're close to calling it, but even a client, I was talking to her or messaging with her the other day. I think it was probably like Wednesday night, because of the blood results, and she's like, "But you're so dedicated and this and that." And like she said, "I hope that I can inspire people the way you inspire people." And I said,
That's rad.
and I say that in just a very neutral way for me to say it, because I'm not like gloating about it or anything. It's just like, okay, leading up to now today, 2 days later, it's like, okay, I need to fix this one problem. Like I said, that's a big deal for me. And with that, we're gonna call it here. I am going to work on this process. My mindset is better than it was a week ago. I look forward to reading that CSW book. Or
Yeah,
C.S. Lewis. Sorry, C.S. Lewis book.
I was gonna buy you a copy on the way over here, but they scheduled me at work for like a last minute lesson, so I didn't have time to do
No,
it.
you're good. But gentlemen, again, thank you for listening today. I feel like I blabbered on like 2 points the whole hour and 30 minutes that we were on the air. But regardless, we progress, work on our processes, evaluate, reevaluate, evaluate again, and cliche for us, moving with life. Not that maybe it's not a cliche, but at least for me, now that I see it every day and I use it in the vlog and I use it in the podcast, it's like, okay, it's what we're doing, and I'm glad that swinging with life didn't work out, because the way I thought about it was like a pendulum, swinging back and forth, kind of like moving in the same motions, and we're not.
Damn, that was a deep as fuck thought on the word swinging there.
Yeah.
That was my. I'll be honest. That was my initial thing. Like swing. Like, I just picture yourself on a swing. So I picture myself on a swing, and we're just back. At that moment when we were creating this podcast and where it was leading to, I felt at that moment like swing. I just feel like we go forward, and then it just seems like when we realize it, we're back again, and then we go forward, and it's swinging. And then we realized like what swinging like came up with on podcast like criteria. It's like,
Right.
okay, hell no, like that's not what this is about. And
Yeah, I'm not good looking enough to be a swinger.
that is still funny to this day. Anyways, but then moving with life, leading up to today, it makes sense.
Man, it's funny how counterintuitive that word could have been, for this. I'm glad it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Same.
So guys, if you guys could start with or end with your social media, any one of you can start, and we'll close it out.
Yeah, sure. So Eddie Signs, y'all can find me on Instagram at Eddie_Signs3. That's EDDIE_SAENZ, as in zebra, and then the number 3. And then on Twitter, it's the same thing without the underscore.
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram.
No way.
Under Brian Alejandro _ BRYANALEJANDRO _.
How about Facebook? Tell them where they can find you on Facebook.
You can't.
For my social media, exit out of this. So my facebook.com/Andy Walker Lead is my personal page. And then my artist page, which it's connected to, I've said this, but it's connected to my Instagram and everything. So it's all together. So it's just my separate page, I guess. That one's Andy Walker Leads with an S at the end. My Instagram and Twitter are at Andy Walker _lead. And then if you want to follow me on Snapchat, it is just Andy Walker Lead. And I'm going to leave this last quote because it's something that I guess it's also been a planted seed in me. Better safe than sorry condemns itself. In a sorry world, there is no safety to be found in standing still. M. Ridley, the Rational Optimist.